Namaskara to all of you and welcome to our next session on yogic life. So we were reading this pravachan, what is the cosmic entity? So we saw in the previous pravachan that how human beings have the desire to seek the infinite, which is the unique dharma of the human beings. That is essentially the Manava Dharma. Manava Dharma is one and is common to all human beings. And we said that the infinite entity is Brahma, right? And we also understood that Brahma exists. And Brahma is actually called as, Parama Purusha, Bhuma Chaitanya, universal consciousness, right? So, and also we said that in Brahma, Brahma is a collection of Prakriti and Purusha. Purusha is the consciousness, the Chiti Shakti, and Prakriti is the unique force which qualifies the Purusha, right? So Prakriti and Purusha, they have an Avinabhava Sambandha. They are so intertwined that you cannot separate them, right? You cannot separate Prakriti from Purusha. So we can say Purusha is Shiva and Prakriti is Shakti. Shiva Shaktyatmakam Brahma. So what is Brahma? Shiva Shaktyatmakam. It comprises of Shiva and Shakti. Shaktihi sa Shivasya Shaktihi. Shaktihi sa Shivasya Shaktihi. Shakti, whose Shakti she is Shakti of Purusha. She is Shakti of Purusha. So she is subordinated to Purusha. So she is under the control of Purusha. Prakriti is under the control of Purusha. And Prakriti, when Purusha gives the Anumati, when he allows the Prakriti, then Prakriti qualifies Purusha. Prakriti is a unique force and she qualifies Purusha. They both of them, they are like two sides of a paper. You cannot separate Prakriti and Purusha. So wherever there is Prakriti, there is Purusha, and wherever there is Purusha, there is Prakriti. So then we also said that just like how I can look at a book, or I can touch a book, or I can smell a flower, all of those gunas that we have, Rupa Rasa Gandha Sparsha, right? With those I cannot I cannot see Purusha, I cannot see Prakriti, I cannot touch Prakriti, I cannot smell Prakriti or Purusha. So essentially Purusha and Prakriti, both of them do not have a form, right? If only if something has a form, then I can actually see it. So Purusha and Prakriti, both of them cannot they don't have a form. We cannot visualize any form. We cannot attribute a form to them. So how do we understand, how do we know Prakriti and Purusha? Is we can only form an idea of Prakriti and Purusha as our bhavana, as an introversial flow. Through sadhana we can understand Purusha. So Prakriti has this unique force. Prakriti has three gunas, Trigunatmika Prakriti. She has three gunas: Sattva Gunaha, Rajo Gunaha and Tamo Gunaha. She has three gunas, and using those gunas she qualifies the crudest of things. Prakriti qualifies everything. She qualifies Purusha. So just like fire is a very crude object, but then it has this quality of burning. It has this quality of burning. Prakriti has these qualities, the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. There's three gunas. It has these three gunas. With these three gunas she can qualify Purusha. So both Prakriti and Purusha, they don't have a form, so we cannot see them, we cannot hear them, we cannot touch them, so we cannot taste them, right? So both Prakriti and Purusha are subtle. So when we say subtle and when we say crude, so what do you mean by subtle and crude? I'd like to clarify that a little bit later on. So both Prakriti and Purusha are subtle, and the collective name for both of them is Brahma, right? So Brahma, when we say Brahma, Prakriti Purusha together is Brahma. Brahma is shapeless, doesn't have a shape, it doesn't have a form. right? So we were seeing that, the mind has three components: the mahat tattvam, mahat tattvam, aham tattvam, and chitta. We saw how that when the sattva guna of prakriti influences purusha, we get the mahat tattvam, we get the feeling of I exist, right? At the purusha stage, there is no feeling, there is no existence, nothing. Purusha doesn't even recognize his existence. So when the guna of prakriti, sattva guna of prakriti influences purusha, we get the mahat tattva, where you get the realization I exist. And when the rajoguna of prakriti influences the mahat tattvam, we get the aham tattvam, which is the doer I. So then we get the functionality of, I can do something. So that is the aham tattva. And when the tamoguna of prakriti influences the aham tattva, we get the chitta, which is the done I. So chitta takes the shape of anything, any object in the world, external object. If you're seeing something, if you're seeing a book, it takes the shape of the book, and the aham tattva sees the book on the chitta. So this is how the mind actually functions. So we can see that the chitta is dependent on aham tattva, and aham tattva is dependent on mahat tattva. Mahat tattva is dependent on the purusha, right? We can see that because of the influence of the gunas, these functional forms of I have come into existence. So these are all not independent. They're ultimately dependent on the jivatma, the consciousness, right? But on the other hand, the consciousness, when you say unit consciousness, purusha, is independent. Purusha is not dependent on anything else. It is completely independent. It does not have a beginning. It does not have a karya karana bhava. We cannot say, when we say pot, we can say that the pot has come from soil, from mud. So mud is the karana for pot. Like that, we cannot say that there is a karana for the purusha and prakriti. Both of them are independent, right? Both of them are independent. So purusha is completely independent, prakriti is also completely independent. Both of them do not have a beginning, right? It is not that even though the prakriti is subservient to purusha, shaktihi sa shivasya shaktihi, she's shiva's shaktihi, but that does not mean that prakriti has a beginning. It does not mean that the purusha has created prakriti. Prakriti is also anadi. She is also anadi, and purusha is also anadi. Both of them anadi. They don't have a beginning, right? So both of them are without a karya karana bhava. Both of them are without a karya karana bhava. That is why we are saying both of them are non-causal. So there is no cause. There is no cause for prakriti and purusha. So we have said that both of them do not have a cause. There is no karana for the Brahma, for prakriti and purusha. So then the question comes, do they have an end? Do they have an end? So if we say they have an end, then we must be able to measure Brahma, right? So we have seen that we cannot see prakriti and purusha. We cannot, through our senses, we cannot know prakriti and purusha. So the question is, how can we measure Brahma, right? So is there an instrument that we can use to measure Brahma? We have different instruments by which we can measure different things in this world, right? Anything which is made of the pancha bhutas, anything which is made of the akasha tattva, the agni tattva, jala tattva, and kshiti tattva, vayu tattva, those are the things that we can actually see and we can measure, right? So if we can measure Brahma, how can we measure Brahma? Can we measure Brahma using any of the instruments of the world? Right? The instruments of the world are all made of panchabhutas. So can we use any one of those instruments to measure Brahma? So then the thing is that Brahma is so subtle. He's so subtle. We cannot see him, or he's not indriya grahya. He cannot be captured by our indriyas. He cannot be captured by our senses. Then that means that any instrument of the world, any instruments which are made out of panchabhutas, cannot be used to measure Brahma, because Brahma is very, very subtle. So that means we need to have an instrument which is much subtler than Brahma. Then only we can measure Brahma. right? So then we also saw that, in this world there are panchabhutas, 5 rudimental factors or tattvas, right? The akasha tattva, vayu tattva, agni tattva, jala tattva, and kshiti tattva. So akasha tattva, ethereal factor, vayu tattva, aerial factor, agni tattva, luminous factor, jala tattva is liquid factor, kshiti tattva is the solid factor, right? So we were discussing last week how why something is crude versus something is subtle. Why something is subtle? So if something has if an object has tanmatras, then we call it as crude, and if something doesn't have tanmatras, then we call it as subtle. So Brahma does not have any tanmatras, and therefore he is very, very subtle, and that is the reason we cannot see him, touch him, or smell him, hear him, right? But on the other hand, any object of the world we can touch and see and smell and taste. We can do all of that, objects of the world, because they have the tanmatras. So anything that has tanmatras is considered as crude, and anything which does not have tanmatras is considered as subtle, right? A crude thing will always have tanmatras. A subtle thing will not have a tanmatra. So even among the objects of the world, how do we classify? Even among the objects of the world, something is considered subtle, something is considered crude. Like for instance, if you look at the panchabhutas, of all the panchabhutas, the subtlest one is the akasha tattva, because the akasha tattva has only one tanmatra. It has only one tanmatra, which is the sapta tanmatra. Therefore akasha tattva is subtle. When we say subtle, it is not absolutely subtle, it is subtle compared with the vayu tattva, right? The vayu tattva has 2 tanmatras. It has the shabda and sparsha. Therefore compared to the akasha tattva, the vayu tattva is cruder, right? Akasha tattva is subtler. And compared to the vayu tattva, we have the agni tattva. Agni tattva, which is agni tattva, which has 3 factors: shabda tanmatra, sparsha tanmatra, and rupa tanmatra. Agni tattva has rupa tanmatra as well. It has 3 tanmatras. Therefore the agni tattva is cruder compared to the vayu tattva. And then from the agni tattva we get the jala tattva. The jala tattva, which is the liquid tattva. Jala tattva has 4 tanmatras: shabda, sparsha, rupa, and rasa. It also has taste. Therefore jala tattva is cruder compared to the agni tattva. And then the 5th the tattva is the kshiti tattva. Kshiti tattva has also it has the gandha, rupa, rasa, gandha, sparsha. It has all the tanmatras. Therefore the kshiti tattva is the crudest of all the panchabhutas. So in terms of what is the crudest, that means we can say kshiti tattva is the crudest, and compared to kshiti tattva, the jala tattva is subtler. Compared to the jala tattva, agni tattva is subtler. Compared to the agni tattva, vayu tattva is subtler. Compared to the vayu tattva, akasha tattva is subtler. And even compared to the akasha tattva, Brahma is even more subtle. So we cannot use the panchabhutas to measure Brahma, because Brahma is very, very subtle, and these panchabhutas are cruder compared to they are crude compared to the Prakriti and Purusha. Therefore we cannot make an instrument from any of these to measure Brahma. So then how can we measure Brahma? So in addition to the panchabhutas, we also know that in the Srishti there is also this mind, the mind that got created, the mind, right? So in addition to the panchabhutas, you have the antakarana, which is the mind. So the question is, can we use the mind to measure Brahma, right? A mind is very, very subtle. Mind is subtle because we cannot see the mind, we cannot touch the mind, we cannot taste the mind, we cannot hear the mind. So mind is very, very subtle. So if mind is very subtle, and the question is, can we use the mind to measure Brahma? So mind does not have any tanmatras. Mind is very subtle because it does not have any tanmatras. Everything else in this universe is very crude, right? So the question is, now can we use the mind to measure Brahma, right? But the thing is, the mind is very, very subtle, and it can only mind can only it has a quality of thinking, feeling, and grasping an idea, right? So these are the only ways by which we can measure Brahma, right? So we know that the mind has three components: the buddhi tattva, aham tattva, and chitta. So between the consciousness and the components of the mind, the only component of mind which can actually do some work, is the aham tattva. So if at all we have to measure Brahma using mind, then it is the aham tattva which has to measure Brahma. But the thing is, the aham tattva does not have a direct contact with Brahma, because in between, from the jivatma, from the consciousness, what was first created was the mahat tattva, and then from the mahat tattva the aham tattva got created, right? So the aham tattva is dependent on mahat tattva. Without the mahat tattva, aham tattva is not in existence. So and if we have to measure Brahma using aham tattva, the point is that aham tattva does not have a direct contact with, is not able to reach the Purusha, is not able to reach the unit consciousness, unless it has to go through the buddhi tattva. So if during sadhana, if the aham tattva, during deep sadhana, the aham tattva merges into the mahat tattva, then what happens? The aham tattva is no longer in existence. It has reverted to the mahat tattva, and therefore the mahat tattva, can we measure Brahma using mahat tattva? No, we cannot measure Brahma using mahat tattva, because mahat tattva is just the feeling of I exist. It doesn't do any work. Mahat tattva does not do any work, and therefore it cannot measure Brahma. So essentially what we said was that the mind is also incapable of measuring Brahma. So we cannot really measure Brahma, right? So that is the idea. So we said that there is this Shuddha I, which is the Shuddha I. The Shuddha I is the Purusha, the Atma, that is the pure consciousness. The pure consciousness, it gets awareness only when it is qualified by the gunas of the Prakriti. So when the Sattva guna of the Prakriti qualifies the Shuddha I, we get the Mahat Tattva, and then when the Rajoguna exerts its effect on the Mahat Tattva, we get the Aham Tattva, which is the doer I. And when the Tamoguna impacts the Aham Tattva, we get the Chitta, which is the movie screen of the mind, right? When we see a book, when we hear music, when we touch something, when we smell something or taste something, that is all perceived via the Chitta of the mind, taking the form of those things. So these three, the Mahat Tattva, Aham Tattva, and Chitta, right? Only the Aham Tattva is capable of doing something, is capable of measuring something, and if the mind is going to measure anything, then it has to measure via the Aham Tattva, right? So the Aham Tattva came into existence because of the Rajoguna of the Prakriti on the Mahat Tattva. So Aham Tattva, in order to go back, normally the Aham Tattva spends all its time looking at the Chitta and getting all information from the external world. That is its normal function, right? It's always looking at the Chitta and getting all the information from the external world. But if the Aham Tattva wants to go inwards, it is always going outwards. But if it wants to go inwards to assess, right, then normally the Aham Tattva is generally very busy assessing all kinds of other things. It is tasting the food, it is smelling the smell of the flowers, it is seeing the trees, right? The Aham Tattva is very busy assessing the external world, but now it is being asked to assess the inner world, inside, into the Jivatma, into the consciousness. So in order to get there, right, normally it is doing all its assessments via Chitta, but the Chitta cannot take the form of Brahma, right? Chitta is actually cruder compared to the Aham Tattva. It cannot take the form of Brahma. Brahma is a subtle thing. It is more subtle than Chitta. So Chitta can only take the form of things which are Indriya Grahya, right? So then which are with the gunas, right? Which are with the gunas, only that Chitta can take the form of. So in order to go the other direction into the Jivatma. We were always going outwards to the objects of the world. Now we have to go inwards into the Jivatma. The Aham Tattva has to go inwards. As soon as the Aham Tattva through sadhana goes inwards, then it reverts back into the Mahat Tattva, which has the faculty of awareness of its existence. The Mahat Tattva cannot do anything. All it does is I exist. It has this feeling. So as soon as the Aham Tattva goes backwards in towards itself, it becomes Mahat Tattva, right? It becomes Mahat Tattva. The Aham Tattva is completely gone. It becomes Mahat Tattva, and then Mahat Tattva has contact with the Atma, the Shuddha I. It is the Mahat Tattva has the contact with the Atma, but the Mahat Tattva is unable to do anything, or it is not able to do anything. It doesn't do any function, right? So then it is incapable of measuring Brahma. So that means Aham Tattva is unable to come into contact with consciousness, and when it cannot come into contact with consciousness, then it cannot measure Brahma. So this inability to measure right by the Aham Tattva, that therefore indicates that the mind as a whole cannot measure Brahma, right? So this is where we actually ended last week. So any questions so far? Shubham Bhagni, did you understand? Is it clear now? Bhagini, are you able to hear Shubham Bhagini? I don't see your mute button. Are you able to did you understand, Bhagini?
Yes, Bhagini. Yes.
Okay. It's clear, right? It is true.
Yeah. I have that always doubt, the one common doubt. Then how do we believe that Brahma exists if we cannot do any functions, like feel, perceive that thing? Then how do we have that firm belief that it exists?
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. How do we know or understand that Brahma exists? So during sadhana, when you go deep inside, that is when you get the sakshatkara of Brahma. That is when your mind completely merges with the Purusha, then you get the sakshatkara of Brahma. So only through sadhana you can realize Brahma, right? So the rishis of the past who were engaged in deep sadhana, they have realized Brahma and they've become Brahma, right? They've become Brahma. So that is the only way. Sadhana is the only way of realization of Brahma. There is no other way. How do we know that there is Brahma? Is because the rishis of the past have experienced and realized the Brahma and have given us this knowledge of yoga. Through yoga we can understand that Brahma exists and we can realize Brahma. So that is the way. So we are in the right path, the path of Yoganishta Jivanam. So through this path we can come to realize that there is Brahma. So that is my answer in short. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that is why we say, what is yoga? Yoga is the union of the finite with the infinite, is the merger of the union of the jivatma with the paramatma, right? Jivatma with the paramatma. And how do we experience Brahma? Is only through the atma sakshatkara, happens only through sadhana. There is no other way for atma sakshatkara. To realize the Brahma, to merge with Brahma, to become one with Brahma, it is possible only through sadhana, only through deep meditation. When one goes deep into meditation, then just like I was explaining that the Aham Tattva merges into the Mahat Tattva and the Mahat Tattva merges into Brahma, right? That is how we realize Brahma. Okay, so now we can actually move forward. Sharada Bhagini, do you want to no, Pushpalata Bhagini, do you want to take the next one?
Bhagini. Mind can only determine from there only, no?
Yes.
Mind can only determine the boundaries of something which is within its scope. It cannot set limits to a thing which is beyond its reach. The creation is only a part of Brahma. This will be explained in the following chapter. Mind exists within this creation. On withdrawing mind, Aham Tattva, to its limit, we find something left beyond it, which it has no capacity to comprehend. Creation thus extends beyond the limits of the mind. Although not infinite, it is Vishala or huge beyond our capacity to measure it. Creation is only a part of Brahma, and if a part can be Vishala, Brahma, the whole which contains it, must be infinite or Virat. So, mind can only determine things which it has within its scope. It cannot set some limits and find out things which is beyond its reach. So the creation is only a part of Brahma. The mind exists within this creation. On withdrawing mind, that is the Aham Tattva, which is the Aham Tattva, to its limit, we will find something is left behind it, which cannot be, which it has no capacity to comprehend, or which it cannot measure. Creation thus exists beyond the limits of the mind also. Although not infinite, it is broad, Vishala, or broad, or huge, beyond our capacity to measure it. Creation is only a part of Brahma, and this itself is Vishala, and if this part itself is Vishala, the whole which contains it must be more Vishala or infinite or Virat or broad. That's what this paragraph. So measurement is very difficult. This paragraph ensures that.
Yes, Bhagini, nicely said. So what we are saying is that mind has its own limitations. Yeah. So when the mind is normally focused on chitta, right, it's normally focused on the external world, but then through sadhana it can withdraw, the mind can withdraw into the Mahat Tattva. That much it can do through sadhana, and it cannot do anything other than that. The mind can withdraw into the Mahat Tattva. It has a sense that it exists, and at that point it cannot measure anything though, because Mahat Tattva doesn't have the capacity to do anything. It cannot measure Brahma. So the mind has this much awareness that there is a creation behind it, right? Beyond the mind, there's something beyond the mind. That mind is aware, right? So when I say I exist, right? When I say main hu, when we say main hu, who is this main? The main is not the mind, right? Main hu is aham asmi. When I say that, aham asmi, so who is this aham? Aham is not the body, right? The body is not aham, right? The aham. So that means there is something beyond. There is something beyond the mind, because we say mama manaha, my mind, mera man. When we say who is this mera, so the mind is aware that there is something beyond. There is something beyond the mind. The aham tattva is aware that there is lots of creation outside of itself. Outside of us, we know there is a lot of things, right? There are a lot of things outside, but actually the mind knows that there is an external world, but it is not able to measure that world. That creation, the srishti, is very large. It's beyond the capacity of the mind to measure it, right? The srishti that we have, the external world that we have, the objects of the world, everything in the world, can the mind measure all of that, right? The mind cannot measure all of that, because the srishti is very, very, very vishal. It is very vishal. It is very, very large, beyond the capacity of the mind to measure it. So the English word infinite is not appropriate here. Like, for instance, we cannot say the mind is infinite. The mind is, we can say the mind, we can say the world, we cannot say the world is infinite. When we think about the world, right, the world is very, very large, no doubt, but can we say the world is infinite? No, the world is not infinite. The world is vishal. The srishti is vishal, right? This Srishti is actually part of the samudra of Purusha. The Srishti is part of the ocean of consciousness. So when the Srishti is very vishal, when it is very, very large, right, and this vishal Srishti is only a part of that ocean of consciousness, is only a part of that ocean of consciousness. So that ocean of consciousness is actually Virat. It is Virat. It is not Vishal, it is Virat. So the Srishti is Vishal, not Virat, but Srishti is not infinite. It is just Vishal, beyond the ability of the mind to measure it, certainly, but it is not without an end. It is just Vishal, and Vishal is not something Virat. Only thing that is Virat is Purusha, the Brahma. Brahma is the only thing that is which is Virat, which has no beginning, and it has also, as we can understand by this, it has also no end. So ultimately, to understand this, right, how do we understand Brahma is through sadhana. It needs sadhana, and that experience of the infinitude, the only thing in this universe, right, can the only thing that can be infinite in this universe is Brahma. There cannot be two things which are infinite. The Srishti is not infinite, it is only Vishal. The Srishti is it's Vishal and not infinite, and this Brahma is only thing that is infinite, which has no beginning and no end, and this Brahma can be experienced in sadhana. This Brahma that can be experienced in sadhana is Virat, and that is the only thing which is infinite. And if we were to say there are two things which are infinite, then neither one could be infinite, because both of them would have something outside of it. So in this universe, right, so in this whole discussion that we are having, the only thing that is infinite and Virat is Brahma, and that is perceived through the process of sadhana ultimately, right? How do we know Brahma? Is through sadhana. It is being to everything that is being used, is being attempted to describe all of this from an intellectual sphere, right? How we can best understand what Brahma is, right? The best way to say is that the Srishti is Vishal and this Brahma is Anadi Anant Satta. Anadi Anant Satta. This Brahma is Anadi Anant Satta. That is what is being explained in this paragraph. So we can actually go on to the next one. So Shubham Bhagini, do you want to take the next one?
Okay, Bhagini. The combined name for Purusha and Prakriti is Brahma. It was seen earlier that both Purusha and Prakriti are non-causal. Naturally, if they are both non-causal, it means that they are also independent of each other. Neither of them is subordinate to the other. The state of Brahma, where both Purusha and Prakriti are independent because they are non-causal, is a supreme state of Brahma or Brahma Sarupa. Prakriti is a principle or unique force, the function of which is to attribute guna or to qualify Purusha. Guna ordinarily means an attribute or qualification. In Sanskrit, guna means a rope used for tying something. To attribute guna means to bind with the rope. Prakriti qualifying or attributing guna to Purusha means Prakriti is binding Purusha with the rope and driving Purusha according to her desires and wishes. But in the supreme state of Brahma Swarupa, Purusha is independent. Hence, Prakriti cannot qualify or bring Purusha under bondage. Still, Prakriti exists there with Purusha, as Brahma is a combined name for them. Those asleep are incapable of using their facilities or capacity to work. They are inactive in that state, yet they still have capacity to work. Similarly, Prakriti is inactive in Brahma Swarupa. She doesn't perform function or is unable to perform them. The function of Prakriti is to qualify or to attribute guna to Purusha. Purusha doesn't acquire any attribute or qualifications when Prakriti doesn't function. Then he is beyond guna or without guna. So in this paragraph, as Bhagini already said, that Purusha and Prakriti combinedly set Brahma, and we have seen that they are non-causal. Like there are no reasons for their cause, and they are also independent to each other, like side of a paper or side of a coin, and neither of them is subordinate to each other. Like they are completely independent of each other. and completely they are called as Brahma, and that condition of Brahma is called Brahm Sarupa. So in Brahm Sarupa they are just independent and doesn't depend on another. But when Purusha wants Prakriti to qualify him, then Prakriti has gunas, and gunas are like a rope that binds Purusha and provides it gunas. So when Purusha wants Prakriti to qualify it, then Prakriti qualifies it and provides that bondage and that gunas. But before in Brahm Swarupa, they are just independent and doesn't have. They are just like inactive and in sleep phases. And okay, the Prakriti is also inactive in Brahm Swarupa and doesn't perform any action on Purusha or provide him gunas, and he's beyond the gunas. So that's all. The new thing is like gunas is like rope that binds Purusha and provide its gunas.
Yes, Bhagini, so beautifully explained. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Yeah, you have a clear understanding. That's good. So we are seeing that Brahma consists of both Purusha and Prakriti. So we have already seen, we have characterized both of them as Anadi and Ananta, without a beginning and without an end, right? So Prakriti's job is to, when she gets the opportunity, her job is to qualify Purusha with her gunas. However, in the state of Brahma Swarupa, right, when in the nirguna state, the Purusha is without gunas. In that state, Prakriti is there. It is not that Prakriti is not there. Prakriti is always there with Purusha. There is no there is no point where Purusha is independent. He is not without Prakriti. So Prakriti is there. Is not like he's separated. They're always together, right? But at some state, Purusha is nirguna. Prakriti does not qualify him. But in other states, the Purusha gives the permission to Prakriti, and Prakriti qualifies the Purusha using her gunas. So essentially both of them are in a way independent, but the Purusha has, it is under the Purusha's it is under his authority to decide whether he wants to give control to whether he wants to allow Prakriti to qualify him or not, right? In that sense, we are saying that Shaktihi sa Shivasya Shaktihi. Shakti is Shiva's Shakti. So in that, even though here it's saying it is not subservient, right? But essentially Prakriti cannot do anything unless Purusha gives the permission, right? Only when Purusha gives the permission, then only Prakriti can do something. So essentially there is a statement in Sanskrit, Ekoham Bahusyam, right? Ekoham Bahusyam, which means Purusha thinks, I am one, I want to become many. When Purusha thinks I'm one and I want to become many, when he has this intention of creating this Srishti, then Purusha gives permission to Prakriti, and that is when the Prakriti qualifies Purusha. Till that time, Purusha is nirguna. He doesn't have any guna, guna rahita. He is guna rahita, doesn't have any gunas. But then when Purusha makes the sankalpa, when he makes a sankalpa that Ekoham Bahusyam, I'm one, I want to become many, then Prakriti starts doing her work. Then she uses her gunas to influence, to impact Purusha, to make Purusha gunanvit. And when Purusha becomes gunanvit, that is when this Srishti begins to happen, right? So there is this nirguna avastha in which Purusha and Prakriti, both of them are there, but in that state Prakriti is not able to qualify Purusha, right? So so essentially Prakriti is also there, Purusha is also there. Prakriti has her gunas. Even though she has all her gunas, she is not able to qualify Purusha because Purusha has not given permission in the nirguna avastha. And when Purusha decides to give permission to Prakriti, when he thinks I want to create this Srishti, then he gives permission to Prakriti, and at that point in time Prakriti uses her gunas to influence purusha. But in a sense both of them are independent, but both of them exist as an integrated structure, as one, right? We can't separate the two. They're like two sides of a paper. So that is what is being discussed in this paragraph, right? So can we move on now? Any questions? Okay, so okay, Pushpalata Bhagini agre. Yeah, further.
Bhagini. How is that Prakriti, whose only function is to qualify Purusha, does not influence or is unable to qualify Purusha in Nirguna Brahma? There can be only two reasons for this. Prakriti is either asleep and hence inactive, or is weaker than Purusha and is thus unable to bind Purusha. If we accept the first probability, we will have to admit that Prakriti is asleep in Nirguna Brahma or Brahma Swarupa. But Prakriti does qualify Brahma at some stage. If she is in the state of sleep in Nirguna Brahma, someone will wake her up so that she may qualify Purusha. In Nirguna Brahma, there are only Purusha and Prakriti. There is no other entity. So only Purusha can do it. But Purusha, we know, is even incapable of realizing his own existence without being qualified by Prakriti. How can he then perform the function of awakening Prakriti? We have therefore to dismiss the possibility of Prakriti being asleep in Nirguna Brahma. Otherwise, in the absence of any other entity, it would not be possible to rouse Prakriti to qualify Purusha and to manifest him as Buddhi Tattva. Prakriti is awake even in Nirguna Brahma. She is not asleep. The quality, dharma or function of Prakriti is to qualify Purusha, and if she is awake in Nirguna Brahma, she must qualify Purusha. Purusha in Nirguna Brahma is not qualified in spite of the presence of Prakriti fully awake. That Prakriti is weaker than Purusha in Nirguna Brahma can be the only reason for this. She is less powerful and so is unable to qualify Purusha. That is how Prakriti and Purusha have existed in Brahma for eternity. Purusha therefore is by nature more powerful than Prakriti and is the transcendental entity, and Prakriti is the innate principle. The state where Prakriti is feebler than Purusha and is incapable of influencing or qualifying Purusha is the state of Nirguna Brahma or Brahma Swarupa, that is, the state where Purusha and Brahma is not metamorphosed. So, the paragraph says that, just go up, no? The Prakriti, whose only function is to qualify the Purusha, is not able to qualify the Purusha in Nirguna Brahma stage. So, the reason for this is Prakriti is either asleep or she should be less active than Purusha or weaker than Purusha, and so she is not able to bind the Purusha. But if you think that Prakriti is asleep, then there must be someone, and if she has to qualify Purusha, there must be some factor to awake her from her sleep. And assuming that she is asleep in the Nirguna Brahma, she has to be awakened by some entity. But we know that the Brahma has only these two entities, that is Purusha and Prakriti, and there is no other factor which can help or awaken Prakriti from her sleep and qualify Purusha. So the first probability that she is asleep is not possible. So the quality, dharma, function of Prakriti is to qualify Purusha, and she is awake in Nirguna Brahma to do this. So she must qualify Purusha. So Purusha and Nirguna Brahma is not qualified in spite of the Prakriti, fully awake. That means Prakriti is weaker than Purusha in the Nirguna Brahma, and this the probable reason for this. She is less powerful. Actually, this shows that she is less powerful and so unable to qualify Purusha. That is how Purusha and Prakriti have existed in Brahma for eternity. Purusha therefore is by nature more powerful than Prakriti and the transcendental entity, and is a transcendental entity. Purusha is the transcendental entity and Prakriti is the inmate principle, which has the power only to qualify Purusha. Then it is allowed or given permission by the Purusha to do so. So in the Nirguna Brahma or the Brahma Swarupa, the Purusha, the state of Purusha is not that metamorphosed. That this one alone I didn't understand. I don't know how to explain that.
Metamorphose means it is creating the srishti. It is taking the form, right?
Okay.
The Nirguna Brahma, when he gives the permission to Prakriti, then this Purusha is metamorphosed into this Jagat,
into
right?
this world. Okay.
Yeah, he gets expressed. You can say he gets expressed.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Purusha is stronger than Prakriti, but he is influenced by its quality, its qualifying quality to create this
Jagat. Yes. Okay, Bhagini, nicely said. Thank you so much. So Nirguna Brahma is a state in which the gunas are not getting expressed, right? Therefore it is Nirguna, Guna Rahita, Purusha, right? And Saguna Brahma is a state in which the gunas are getting expressed. Saguna, Gunena Saha, right? Saguna. So in the Saguna Brahma, in the state when the gunas are getting expressed, then we have this Paridrishyamanam Jagat, right? This whole universe is getting expressed. So the where you have the universe coming into existence in all its various forms, we'll be discussing all that in great detail in the coming Karapatrams. So Saguna Brahma is a state in which it has all the gunas are getting expressed, and where you do not have that occurring, that entire process in which this visible world and this perceptible world is getting expressed and created, right? Where that is not occurring is the Nirguna Brahma. Where the creation of this visible world is not happening, that is the Nirguna Brahma. So in that state, what we are seeing here is that Prakriti is there, Purusha is there, but Prakriti is unable to qualify Purusha for some reason. In the Nirguna Brahma state, Prakriti is unable to qualify Purusha, right? But we are saying that because we are seeing this world, right? In front of us there is this world. We are seeing day to day, we are living, we are eating, we are interacting with the world. We are seeing this world, therefore we know the world exists. So we can understand that Prakriti qualifies Brahma at some state, right? He is not always Nirguna. If he was always Nirguna, then this whole world will not be there. But we are seeing this world, therefore we know that the Nirguna Brahma was qualified at some point by Prakriti, right? Because we have this entire universe around us, which is the result of that qualifying process, right? So even though in Nirguna Avastha, the Prakriti is unable to qualify Purusha, but at some state where she is able to do so, right, she does qualify Purusha, because we have this Jagat, we have this Paridrishyamanam Jagat around us, and we ourselves are in existence in that Jagat. So we are taking food, we are doing all kinds of things, right? We exist and this universe exists. So this Prakriti does qualify Brahma at some stage. So there is a state in which, for some reason, which is as of yet unexplained, that Prakriti is unable to qualify Purusha. But then there is a transition into a stage in which Prakriti is able to do so, and in fact does so. And we know that to be the case because we see this universe around us. So Prakriti does qualify Purusha at some stage. So there can only be two reasons why in the stage where she's not doing so, why she's not doing so, right? In the Nirguna state, she's not qualifying Prakriti. There can be two reasons. One is that she's asleep, right? And she's not active. And the other reason is that she's weaker than Purusha. Therefore, she's unable to bind Purusha. But some state she is able to qualify Purusha at some state. So if she is in a state of sleep in the Nirguna Brahma, then how can she qualify Purusha? That means she needs to be awake. Then only she can qualify Purusha. And then there are only two entities in this whole, right? There are only two entities. One is the Purusha and the other is the Prakriti. So if Prakriti is asleep, then who has to wake her up? It is the Purusha who has to wake her up, right? Purusha has to wake her up, and then only Prakriti can qualify Purusha. But as we know that Purusha is without any gunas, he is without any gunas, he doesn't even know his own existence, then how can he wake Prakriti up, right? He doesn't have any capacity to wake Prakriti up. He doesn't even realize his existence. So then there, we can understand that Prakriti was not asleep, right? Because there is no one else to awake her. So if she was asleep and Purusha is not able to awake her and there is nobody else who can awake her, then it just tells us that Prakriti was not asleep. Prakriti was there, but she was not active for some reason, right? And what that reason could be is that she was potentially weaker than the Purusha, right? So we know that whether at the individual jiva level, anujiva level, or at the cosmic mind level, Bhuma Man, in either case, mind is created through the qualification of Purusha. So we saw how the mind got created. But because of the influence of the gunas on Purusha, the mind got created. At the individual level, at the unit level, unit conscious level, at the Jivatma level, how the mind got created, we saw that, right? And at the cosmic level, also the mind gets created in the same manner, right? In either case, the mind is created through the qualification of Purusha. So we start with the Shuddha Purusha, the pure I, and by taking the Sattva Guna of Prakriti, we get the Mahat Tattva, and by the activity of Rajo Guna on the Mahat Tattva, we get the Aham Tattva, and by the activity of Tamo Guna on Aham Tattva, we get the Chitta. So we know that. So the mind has these three components and three functionalities which arise as a result of Prakriti and Purusha. So first is the creation of the Mahat Tattva, which is the I feeling, so that in other words, the Purusha or consciousness realizes its own existence upon the action of Sattva Guna on Purusha, right? So until the gunas of Prakriti, Sattva Guna of Prakriti, until the Sattva Guna of Prakriti influences the Purusha, until that point Purusha doesn't even know its existence, right? Otherwise, in the state of the Nirguna Avastha, the Shuddha Purusha, he doesn't have the sense of I exist. He doesn't feel I exist. It is just I. It is pure I. There is no feeling that, that feeling of I comes only when the Purusha becomes Gunanvit. That I exist is Gunanvit state, right? When the gunas influence, then only I get I exist. That is the first state. Then only after that we get the Aham Tattva, in which the functional form of Purusha as Aham Tattva becomes capable of doing something. So here the statement that it is incapable of realizing its own existence means that Purusha cannot, in the Nirguna state, he cannot realize his own existence. And then what to speak of doing something such as waking up Prakriti, right? It does not even know that it exists. So it is just Shuddha Purusha in Nirguna Avastha, right? So it cannot wake up Prakriti, right? So it doesn't even know its own existence, and how can it wake up something? So waking up something means you should have kartrutvam, So if I want to wake up somebody who is sleeping, then I should know I am existing. If I don't know I am existing, how can I wake up somebody? I should have that kartrutva bhava, that I am the karta, right? So Purusha is not going to awaken Prakriti. So then how can Prakriti influence Nirguna Purusha and create this Jagat, right? So there is nobody else. There is nobody else to awaken Prakriti. So with that being said, then we have to default to the other option. That is to say that by default, Prakriti is weaker than Purusha in the Nirguna Avastha. It's therefore incapable of qualifying Purusha. So we got to state where we are saying that Purusha cannot awaken Prakriti. So Prakriti must not be asleep. So it must be in a situation in which both of them, although independent and non-causal, that Purusha is dominant in the Nirguna Avastha, is more powerful, and Prakriti is weaker, right? But that is the baseline state, the Nirguna Avastha. The Purusha is also there, Prakriti is also there, both of them are awake, both of them are active, but Prakriti is unable to manifest this universe, manifest anything, because she is weaker than Purusha. Prakriti is never sleeping, she never sleeps, right? So the function of sleeping is not there in the Nirguna state at all, right? So she is very, very active in that Nirguna state also, right? In the Nirguna state also Prakriti has the three gunas. There is Sattva guna, Rajo guna and Tamo guna. All of them are there in the Nirguna Avastha also. So that is what I want to say over here. Any questions so far? Is that all clear? Okay. So we will just take one more paragraph. Shubham Bhagini.
Yes, Bhagwan. In the state of Brahma, where
yeah, please.
In the state of Brahma, where Purusha is not influenced or qualified by Prakriti, and hence Purusha in Brahma remains unexpressed, Purusha is called Nirgun Purusha, non-qualified consciousness. And where Purusha is influenced and qualified by Prakriti, he is called Saguna or Guna Yukta Purusha, or the qualified consciousness. Sagun Brahma is there for that stage of Brahma where Purusha is influenced or qualified by Prakriti. So here in this paragraph, there are two Purusha, Sagun Purusha or Nirgun Purusha. And Nirgun Purusha in non-qualified state, when Prakriti doesn't qualify Purusha, and Sagun Brahma when Prakriti qualifies it and binds it with gunas. So that's all in this paragraph.
Yes, Bhagni, very nicely said. Thank you so much. Yes, that is the idea over here. So there are basically two states, the Nirguna Avastha and the Saguna Avastha. In the Nirguna Avastha, the Prakriti is weaker than Purusha. The collective form of Prakriti and Purusha together is Brahma. And in that Nirguna Avastha, we don't have this Jagat, because Prakriti is not able to influence her gunas on Purusha. Purusha is Guna Rahita, and that's why we call Nirguna Purusha. And then later on, when, as we saw, the Purusha gives permission to Prakriti, when Purusha gives permission to Prakriti, then she gets the power to influence the Purusha, and at that point in time the Purusha becomes Saguna Purusha, Guna Yukta Purusha. He becomes with the gunas, and when he becomes with the gunas, that is when this Jagat comes into existence. That is when this Paridrishyamanam Jagat comes into existence. So we have two states, the Nirguna Avastha and the Saguna Avastha. Okay, so this is what we want to say. And if do you guys have any questions at this point? Okay, so I'm thinking everybody is following along. So we will conclude the session over here, and we'll meet the next week. So I want to conclude by saying that all of you should continue to engage in this Yoganishta Jivanam, and you have to make sure you're doing all of, eating sattvic ahar, doing your asanas twice a day, right? Doing the Nirjal Upvasa on Ekadashi. So remember to do all of that. It's very, very important, right? You will see that, by doing it, even for like one day, you will see a dramatic effect on yourself, on your body and mind. Right? So please continue doing all of that, because without doing all of that, just reading the pravachans is not going to do anything. It's not going to help you. It just becomes theoretical, right? So yoga is 99% practice and 1% theory, and that theory is also for implementation only. So I would encourage all of you to, try to better yourself every day, right? So whatever you're doing in the previous day, you better yourself, and get stability in that. Make this as your swabhava. So that is very important. So once it becomes your swabhava, then you will not fall from it, right? And initially you will have challenges, you will have struggles, and you have to welcome that challenges and welcome those challenges, welcome those struggles, right? Because anything in life, right, even if somebody is studying, let's say for engineering or for whatever, for some competitive exam or whatever, right, you'll have the struggle in life, right? Without struggle you're not going to get success. So even this has a struggle, and you have to welcome the struggle, because once you cross the struggle phase, then it is a phase of bliss. You will get so many things that it is just unimaginable. You will get the calmness, you will get the mental clarity, you will get peace, and above all, you are going closer to Parama Purusha. That is the whole aim of the goal of human life, right? So keeping all that in mind, I would ask you all to continue to engage in this Yoganishta Jivanam. Accept it happily, right? Don't make it like a drill saying, oh my god, it's so bad. No, accept it as a challenge, accept it happily, and you will 100% get success. There is no doubt about it. Okay, with that said, I would like to conclude my session today.
Thank you, Bhagini. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskara. Thank you.